Hello, it's Mrs. Fida, and we're here today to continue our work with multiplication, and we're going to be working with word problems. Now, when you work with word problems, you know how very important it is to read carefully what the problem is looking for, find out what the final question is, and see what information they've given you. As we look at today's example, you're given a story problem with some sports team uniforms, and you need to think, what is it they're looking for? The problem simply says the local sports team needs to buy 8 team shirts. And how could you calculate that cost? You know that you've been learning so many different strategies. You could use the double and half strategy, where you know you could have 8 into 4 and double 45 and do 4 times 90. You could go ahead and set up the partial product with your boxes with 8 on one side and break 45 into 40 and 5. It's an 8 fact. So you could do double the double the double. 45 doubled, double that, and then double that. Or you could use the standard algorithm. There's so many ways to go about solving a problem. What you need to think about is what works best for you. We have been doing quite a bit of work with the standard algorithm, and the standard algorithm with practice can be a very efficient method in solving multiplication. When using that standard algorithm, you may have to rely on some of these other strategies, or some of these strategies might work better for you. Let's take a look at some examples from your student page today, your actual work that you're assigned, and let's go about setting them up together. Because when we read a story problem, we need to think about what it's saying and set it up to make sure we're doing the math that's needed. In this first problem here, it says shirts are $39 each, which is $15 less than the price of a bat. What is the total cost of 8 bats? If we look at this particular story problem, we can see that the final question says, what is the total cost of 8 bats? So if we think about the bats, does it tell us how much bats are in this problem? No, that's what we're trying to figure out. What is the cost of a bat? But what it does tell us, the information it does give us, is that shirts are $39, which is $15 less than bats. So I know bats have to be more than shirts. And how much more? It tells us $15 less. So I could see now that they've given me two parts. They told me shirts are $39, which is $15 less than the price of a bat. So, in looking at this model, what could you do to find out how much a bat even costs? We need that information before we can think about how much 8 bats cost. So you can see here that you need to do some addition before you even go about multiplying. So if we know that a bat costs the price of a shirt, which is $15 less than the bat, we could add this together. And when we get the total for this amount, now we know the cost of a bat. So we know now that bats will cost this amount. And how many bats do I need? I need that times, it tells us here, the cost of 8 bats. And once I solve that problem, I'll come up with the answer that they're looking for. So this problem required a little bit of thinking. And by drawing out a model, any kind of model that helps you is very important. And then thinking about the math that you would need in order to solve for the problem. This setup will help you come up with the answer for this problem. Let's look at another example. Another example that we're given here is a story that says there are 14 girls' teams and 12 boys' teams in a league. Each team has one manager and 8 players. How many players are in the league? Well, there's a lot of information here, so let's go through and try to find out some of the information we might need. First of all, they tell us that there are 14 girls' teams and there are 12 boys' teams, and that makes up that league. The final question asks, how many players are in the league? There's also some other important information here, and here's that word each. That's a key word for us to think about. Each team has one manager and 8 players. So each team has one manager and 8 players. The question is asking, how many players are in the league? Does it ask anything about managers? It doesn't. This is extra information we don't need. So let's set up this problem. We know that there's a league altogether here. And we know in that league we have 14 girl teams. And we know we also have 12 boys teams. That's what makes up the whole league. And this problem also tells us that each team has 8 players. So these are the girls. And on each of the girls' teams, there's 8 players. Ha! If we multiply the 14 teams by 8 players on each team, we'll find out how many girls are in the league. And then we know there's 12 boys teams. And on each team, there's 8 players. Look at that. There's another multiplication fact that you can solve with all the strategies you know. Once we have this total and this total, will that tell us how many players are in the league? It sure will. But in order to figure that out, what operation are you going to use when you find the number of girls and the number of boys? You're going to have to add the total number of girls plus the total number of boys on each of those teams. And that number will give you how many people are in the league. So again, you had more than just multiplication in this problem. You had to do quite a bit of math. But in thinking about what the problem says and setting it up, again, I drew this model here. This is the way it helped me see it. You might want to think of another way to draw. But most importantly is that you're reading through that problem and thinking about what is the final question you're trying to solve and what information do they give you in the problem. Be careful though, because some of the information given is sometimes information you don't need. I know as you read through these problems carefully and work slowly and carefully with precision, you'll be able to do this. I hope the setup that I've given you, don't forget you can watch this video again and you can click through these slides by toggling up here, and these setups could help you in solving your problems. Go ahead and have fun doing your math.